Thank you so much, Russ. Well, in just a few hours, Vancouver's mayor is going to address the media later this morning. He's expected to respond to calls to bring reform to the city's police department. Meanwhile, Victoria Police have announced new practices and protocols to address racism and discrimination. Our Ashley Burr has our top story.
Police forces are changing, or so it seems. Victoria has announced plans to update its policing practices, and Vancouver is believed to be next.
Police know something about proportionality. This response is not in proportion to the problem.
A statement Wednesday from Victoria Police begins with the words, "The past few weeks have been very challenging."
We have been having these conversations for centuries, and the fact that the police could put out a statement saying the last few weeks have been difficult for us reflects a complete disconnect between our populations and the police force.
The Victoria and Esquimalt Police Board voted on a number of actions to address racism and discrimination, which includes hearing recommendations for improvements from an advisory committee, having additional anti-racism and de-escalation training, and doing an analysis of the demographic of their officers.
The fact that the police does not already collect data that indicates their own composition. Ask yourself that question, what does that mean? So today they're suddenly going to start to collect data about the composition of their own force. This is how far behind this is.
The outline of the work Vic PD plans to do to address racism and discrimination came as a bit of a surprise to the president of the Canadian Police Association.
These are things that have been occurring or should have been occurring all along. I think it's totally appropriate for the police board, and I think they should be involved in having a good understanding of what training their police officers are receiving. They should also have a good idea of what the demographics of their police service are.
Victoria PD declined City News' request for an interview. Meanwhile, Vancouver Mayor Kennedy Stewart is expected to provide his city's response to the growing calls for police reform late Thursday morning.
So nervous, yes. Because if this is the level of response, if this is the approach, it will not work.
Last month, Vancouver Council passed a motion behind closed doors to cut the police department budget by 1%. But the Vancouver Police Board responded last week, saying it will not be making the cut.
Police organizations across the country have been lagging in terms of staffing levels and funding over the past number of years. So we're responding to more demand, growth in population, more regulation with fewer resources.
In New Westminster, Ashley Burr, City News.
It is 9:04 now. The Vancouver Pride Society has announced it will remove all law enforcement from its Pride Parade and festivals. Our Greg Harper is live in Vancouver's West End with more on this. And Greg, not everyone agrees with this decision.
Well, it's a big decision and a controversial one, too. Good morning, Mary. We're here along Davie Street in Vancouver's West End here this morning, getting some reaction from the community. So Vancouver Pride Society says the decision is in response to a recent outrage over several deaths involving police brutality south of the border. The society says it's also supporting calls to defund the police. This year's event, the Pride Parade, other festivals, of course, will be online due to COVID-19.
We will not be accepting any law enforcement VPD to be in that digital entry for this year. And then moving forward to next year, we will not be welcoming VPD to be part of the City of Vancouver's entry.
Corporal Eleanor Sturco, who you've likely seen on the news as she's a media relations officer with Surrey RCMP, she is quite upset by this decision, and she took to Twitter posting this. I'm an LGBT police officer. When we wear our uniforms and participate in Pride events, we do so not only to stand with our community, but stand up to discrimination within our own institutions. I am disheartened. And she finishes it with hashtag Vancouver Pride. Here's some thoughts from the community.
I understand the choice. I understand making a decision to stand up in solidarity. And while it's not going to make everybody happy, it's the community's decision, and I would support it.
As long as the police are involved and not a law enforcement aspect as their support, I don't see an issue with them being there.
It's definitely a controversial issue, and the Pride Parade, of course, will look very different for that reason, and also because it will be a virtual parade due to COVID-19. Mary?
Okay, thank you so much, Greg. That's her Greg Harper reporting in Vancouver's West End. 9:06 now. The statue of Captain George Vancouver outside Vancouver City Hall appears to have been vandalized. This morning, it's splattered with paint. Captain George Vancouver visited the west coast of North America between 1792 and 1794. This statue was commissioned by the Vancouver Canadian Club and was unveiled in 1936. Premier John Horgan has extended BC's state of emergency for another 2 weeks. He says while things are starting to return to normal, we are not out of the woods. The extension comes as the province reported 12 new cases of COVID-19, no deaths for a fifth straight day. 12 people are in hospital. The rest are recovering at home in self-isolation. There is one new outbreak at Holy Family Hospital, a long-term care facility in Vancouver. Ridership on public transit is up, according to the latest numbers from TransLink. Last week, boardings were 85% higher than the second week of April, which had the lowest numbers during the pandemic. TransLink says the numbers are still low when compared to pre-pandemic levels. A new drive-through testing center for COVID-19 has opened in Richmond. It's in the parking lot of the Richmond Tennis Club. Appointments are not required. Patients are seen on a first-come, first-served basis. Police are searching for two men accused of stealing $45,000 worth of medical wigs and hair extensions from a Vancouver hair salon. It happened on June 3rd. Investigators say the suspects broke into Joe Hair Studio on Cambie Street near 15th Avenue. Surveillance video shows the men leaving in a white, older model van.
Investigators believe that the thieves targeted this particular store to specifically steal the wigs and the hair extensions. These wigs are not only cosmetic, but they can be used for those who, for medical reasons, can't grow hair. For that reason alone, a crime like this is very distressing.
And anyone with information is asked to call Vancouver Police. Okay, continuing our recognition of grade 12 students who are graduating this year, going through a pretty big life transition without the usual celebration. Chloe's interest in politics got her involved with the Model UN Club. She was a moderator for the 2019 federal election debate last fall, and she says many of her peers are already thinking about how to tackle world issues.
I think that we're going to be a lot stronger. I've talked to a lot of people that I wouldn't normally talk to in school, and it's really nice. It's nice to kind of reach out and talk to people, you know, when they might be struggling. Quarantine's hard on all of us, so I think it's really brought the community together. I have done a fair bit in terms of, you know, in the political world and kind of interacting with a lot of kids who really like politics and, you know, world affairs and stuff. So I've been doing a lot of Model UN. Even with coronavirus, we've been doing online Model UN meetings. I've definitely learned from Model UN. There are a lot of kids out there who have very strong and very passionate opinions, and they're not all the same. So I think that in the future we'll be looking at some strong leaders who really have ideas that could push this world forward in a really positive way. I'm not going to lie when I say it's a little bit disappointing to have a graduation in COVID. My parents don't even get to come see it, which is kind of sad, but it's how it has to be, and we would never want to put the community in danger.
On the 65th anniversary of Disneyland's opening in California, the famous theme park is getting ready to reopen. Disney officials say the doors to the Magic Kingdom will swing open on July 17th. Park attendance will be limited. All guests will have to make a reservation, and parades and fireworks will not be returning right away. Vancouver is back in the mix as an NHL hub city for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Sportsnet 650's James Cebulski has your update.
Morning, everybody. Well, could Vancouver be an NHL hub city after all? 2 weeks after we heard from Alberta Premier Jason Kenney pushing the Trudeau government for an exemption for players in the National Hockey League to possibly have Edmonton as a hub city. Now, BC Premier John Horgan says Dr. Bonnie has signed off on a plan that would allow for Rogers Arena and Vancouver to be a hub city for the NHL should the Trudeau government waive their restrictions. Here's the Premier.
The Vancouver Canuck proposal for an NHL NHL Hub City has been approved by the Public Health Officer, Dr. Henry, and our government. As a result, I've written to the Prime Minister advising him that Vancouver and British Columbia would welcome the NHL as per the plan that was put together by the Vancouver Canucks, the NHL, and, of course, public health officials. Dr. Henry's reviewed the plan, and it involves a modification to the quarantine plan that would allow a team to be a family entity or a bubble. And so those individuals within that organization would stay together in one hotel. They would travel to the Rogers Arena together in private transportation. Any testing would be the responsibility of the club. No interaction with the public would take place for the 14-day quarantine period.
Also, some encouraging news coming down over the last 24 hours for youth sports organizations, as the province has also passed an order that will protect amateur sports organizations along with volunteers from any sort of litigation from insurers, allowing youth groups to resume play in the not too distant future. So finally get those kids out there for all those dance, hockey, and soccer programs just around the corner. We're going in the right direction, it seems. That's sports. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, thank you so much for your positivity, James. We're going to take a break. Lots more to come here on Breakfast Television, including the puzzle business, which appears to be thriving throughout this pandemic. Stay with us.